First, rapper sentenced to death. Kool C had the kind of career most rappers from the late 80s would have dreamed of. Chart hits, a major label, and ties to legends like Will Smith and Schoolie D. He kicked things off in West Philly with a diss track in 1987, signed with Atlantic Records in 1989, and dropped 2 solo albums before teaming up with Steady B and Ultimate Ease to form CEB. Their single even cracked the top 5, but the music dried up, and by 1996, Kool C was planning a comeback. That comeback ended in a failed bank robbery that turned deadly. On January 2nd, 1996, he entered a PNC bank in Philadelphia with a .38 revolver. Alongside him was Mark Canty with a 9mm handgun, and Steady B, who stayed outside in a stolen minivan. Officer Laretha Baird was shot and unalived in the line of duty, the first female officer in Philly to die that way. Kool C fled, dropped his weapon, and was arrested later that year. The trial ended on October 30th with a first-degree unalive conviction. By December 13th, he was sentenced to death. Despite 2 execution dates, one in 2006 and another in 2015, both were stayed. Pennsylvania's moratorium on executions has kept Kool C on death row at SCI Green. He remains the only major label rap artist with charting records to ever receive a capital sentence. Others have gotten life, but none hit that legal extreme. His record stands not for fame, but for tragedy. Pennsylvania's had 0 executions since 1999, but Kool C's case still casts a long shadow over both hip-hop and the state's death row. Most Grammy nominations without a win. Snoop Dogg holds one of the strangest stats in Grammy history. 16 nominations, 0 wins. Not one. Across 15 different Grammy ceremonies between 1994 and 2016. He was nominated again and again and still came away with nothing. That's the most nominations for any rapper who's never won. And it ties him for second place overall across every genre. His first nod came in 1994 for Nuthin' But a G Thing with Dr. Dre, then Gin and Juice followed a year later. More nominations rolled in over the next 2 decades, some for solo tracks, some with big names like Akon and Katy Perry. He even earned 2 nominations in a single year twice, in 2004 and 2009. The most common categories, Best Rap Song and Best Rap Performance. But it wasn't just rap. He picked up a reggae nomination in 2014 for his album Reincarnated. He even got 2 nominations tied to Katy Perry's Teenage Dream, including a shot at Album of the Year. Still nothing. His collaborations with Dr. Dre alone earned 3 nods. Even Bruno Mars joined the mix for Young, Wild, and Free, but no trophy. No other rapper has ever reached 16 Grammy nominations without a win. Busta Rhymes is closest with 12. And even with major albums like To Pimp a Butterfly in his corner, Snoop's streak stayed alive. As of 2025, the losing record still stands. He's the only rapper to do it this long, this successfully, and this visibly without a single golden gramophone. 16 nods, 0 wins. Definitely not the kind of record you frame on the wall. Most jail time served by a rapper. Tay-K holds the record nobody wants. 80 years behind bars. Born Tamor Travon McIntyre in 2000, he came up fast in the Texas underground. But by age 16, he was already facing adult charges for unaliving. It started with a botched home invasion in July 2016, where a man was unalived. Tay-K was caught, placed on house arrest, and then cut off his ankle monitor and ran. That's when everything spiraled. While on the run, he recorded The Race, a platinum single that hit number 44 on Billboard and exploded online. But the song's success became part of his downfall. U.S. Marshals captured him on June 30th, 2017. The same day, the music video dropped. In July 2019, he was found guilty of capital unaliving and several robbery counts in the Tarrant County case. The sentence, 55 years for unaliving, plus 30 and 2 separate 13-year robbery terms. All sentences were concurrent, but he still had to serve 28 years before parole was even possible. Then came Bexar County. In April 2025, he was convicted of unaliving in a second case, the Chick-fil-A robbery and unaliving. He got 80 years for that one too. Since it runs alongside the first sentence, the total stayed at 80 years. But the record still shattered his own previous one. No other mainstream rapper with a hit single before arrest has been sentenced to this much time. Others have long bids, Max B, but none hit the charts and then got locked for nearly a century. Tay-K's trajectory from teenage fame to maximum sentence makes him the record holder for most prison time served by a major label rapper. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, first rapper sued for inciting a riot. Travis Scott holds the record for the largest civil lawsuit wave ever filed against a rapper over claims of crowd incitement, within 10 days of the Astroworld Festival disaster on November 5th, 2021. More than 275 lawsuits were filed. That number jumped to nearly 400 by early 2022, covering about 2,800 plaintiffs. That's not just big, it's unprecedented in rap history. The lawsuits claim that Scott incited mayhem through both performance behavior and social media. The allegations included that he ignored warnings, encouraged dangerous crowd energy, and turned the event into what plaintiffs called a death trap. By January 2022, a judge consolidated the lawsuits into one massive case. The claims covered emotional trauma, injuries, and 10 wrongful deaths. And this wasn't Scott's first time facing crowd-related issues. In 2015, he was arrested after urging fans to storm a Lollapalooza stage. Then again, in 2017 in Arkansas. But those never turned into major civil suits. Astroworld did. By 2024, all 10 wrongful death cases had been settled quietly. But over 2,400 injury-only claims were still active. Scott's attempt to get himself dropped from the case failed in May 2024. The court said no, keeping him in. The cases cite things like sneaking the wild ones in as examples of language that encourage chaos. No rapper before him has been sued by this many people for this type of charge. The scale even surpassed lawsuits tied to major pop acts or stadium collapses. Travis Scott became the first rap artist to face this kind of coordinated legal action for incitement. A record no one in music wants. Steepest dropped after a #1 debut. Trolls hit #1, then fell off a cliff. When 6ix9ine and Nicki Minaj dropped the track in June 2020, it shot straight to the top of the Billboard Hot 100. But just 1 week later, it sank to number 34. That's a 33-spot plunge. The steepest drop ever for a song that debuted at #1, at least until Travis Scott showed up 5 years later. For context, The Weeknd's Heartless had previously held the record with a drop from #1 to 17 in 2019. Trolls more than doubled that fall. Billboard confirmed the crash, and by July 4th, 2020, the single was sliding fast. The reason? It had no radio legs. In its first week, the song had over 36 million streams, but only 1.2 million radio impressions. That's nothing in comparison to most Hot 100 giants. The track sold decently at launch, over 116,000 units, but couldn't hold on when the digital buzz faded. Then came Travis Scott's 4x4 in 2025. It debuted at #1 and then collapsed to number 57, breaking Trolls' record with a 56-spot fall. But until that point, no other rap track had ever risen that high and dropped that fast. What made Trolls so infamous wasn't just the fall, it was how quick it all happened. A viral hit 1 week, chart vapor the next. It's the record for the shortest stay at the summit, and one of the best known examples of flash chart hype turning into a total nosedive. Trolls went from #1 to 34 and into the history books, just not for the reason they probably wanted. First rapper banned for lyrics alone, Tyler. The creator holds the rare distinction of being the first rapper officially banned from entering a country strictly because of his lyrics. In August 2015, he was denied entry into the United Kingdom at the Calais-Dover crossing and given a formal ban lasting up to 5 years. This wasn't about a criminal case or bad behavior, it was purely about the content of his music. The UK Home Office, led by then Home Secretary Theresa May, cited songs from his albums Bastard and Goblin, including tracks like VCR and Tron Cat. Officials claimed those lyrics glamorized violence and encouraged intolerance. The letter used phrases like "not conducive to the public good" and said his work could incite terrorism or hatred. That decision forced Tyler to cancel his UK tour, including major shows at Reading and Leeds. Other artists like Sizzla and Buju Banton were blocked over lyrics too, but they're tied to reggae or dancehall. Rappers like Snoop Dogg and Lil Wayne were denied entry before, but it was always due to criminal convictions, not the music itself. Tyler was the first from hip-hop to be banned with lyrics as the sole reason. He was also almost blocked from Australia that same year, but no legal ban was issued there. In the UK though, the ban stuck. He couldn't return until 2019, when the restriction quietly expired. He performed again in London after 4 years of exclusion. This remains a unique moment in rap history. No other major rapper has been legally barred from a democratic country based only on song lyrics. Tyler's case made headlines worldwide and set a strange, unmatched precedent that no artist, rapper or not, wants their name attached to. First rap, tour disrupted by FBI pressure. In 1989, NWA became the first rap group to face coordinated police action and federal protest directly tied to their lyrics. The flashpoint was "Fuck the Police," a track off Straight Outta Compton. That single song triggered an unprecedented chain reaction, one that rewrote the relationship between law enforcement and live hip-hop shows. On August 1st, the FBI sent a letter to Priority Records, warning that the song encouraged violence against officers. It didn't threaten legal action, but it sent a clear message. The letter called NWA's music degrading and dangerous. It was the first time the FBI officially addressed rap lyrics, and it ignited a wave of pressure. Police departments across the country started faxing around NWA's lyrics. Off-duty cops refused to work security. Promoters panicked. Entire concerts got canceled in cities like Washington, D.C., Milwaukee, Chattanooga, and Toledo. In Cincinnati, the city council had to step in just to get the show approved. Then came Detroit. At the tour's final stop, the crowd started chanting the lyrics. Cops stormed the stage mid-set. NWA left the venue and were briefly detained back at their hotel. No arrests, just a heavy message. One officer said they wanted to prove you couldn't say that in Detroit. Nothing like that had ever happened to a rap act. This wasn't about mosh pits or broken speakers. This was federal attention and local police coordination, all reacting to words on a record. It was the first time a rap tour had been systemically disrupted because of lyrics, not violence or crime. And it wouldn't be the last, but it was definitely the first. A record no one saw coming, set not on the charts, but in courtrooms and police logs. Biggest listener, drop on Spotify. Tory Lanez lost millions of monthly Spotify listeners in less than a year, an actual documented collapse, not just a viral rumor. Before the July 2020 Megan Thee Stallion shooting allegations, his monthly listeners were cruising above 30 million. Screenshots and analytics from late 2019 through the mid-2020 backed that up. His numbers were climbing. Then came the fallout. When he dropped Daystar in September 2020, the backlash hit instantly. According to Chartmasters, he was bleeding around 440,000 monthly listeners every month for the next several months. By the time summer 2021 rolled around, his Spotify count had bottomed out between 16 and 18 million. That's a drop of 12 to 14 million monthly listeners. Even if you play it safe and lowball the peak at 26 million, the loss still shreds the so-called 4 million threshold completely. That number's not just real, it's conservative, and it didn't bounce back to its original level. As of mid-2025, his monthly count sits at around 22.2 million. Not bad, but still 8 million. Below what he was pulling pre-scandal. That gap's been stuck for years. Spotify's monthly listener count is visible to anyone. It's the platform's clearest indicator of how often people hit play. And in Tory Lanez's case, the metric shows one of the sharpest, most sustained audience losses ever documented for a rapper during the streaming era. No suspension, no ban, just a fall in real time, triggered by real-world events. From 30 million down to 16 million, then stuck in the low 20s for years. That's a streaming collapse and a record drop in Spotify engagement no other rapper has matched the same way. Lowest first week sales after mainstream success. Soulja Boy set one of rap's most unwanted records with the DeAndre Way, the lowest first week album sales ever documented for a major label rapper who already had mainstream hits. This wasn't some unknown artist with no buzz. This was the guy who had the #1 song in the country with Crank That, a platinum follow-up with Kiss Me Through the Phone, and massive internet visibility. And yet his third studio album sold just 13,400 copies in week 1. That's not just a stumble. That's an 85% drop from his debut album, SouljaBoyTellHim.com, which opened with about 117,000 sales back in 2007. Even his sophomore release, I Soulja Boy Tell Him, moved 46,000 units. Then came The DeAndre Way in late 2010, and it cratered. It debuted at number 90 on the Billboard 200. That's major label backing, Interscope distribution, and a roster of viral hits, resulting in one of the worst week 1 showings for any chart-proven rapper. The industry noticed. Billboard ran pieces asking how someone with over 2 million Twitter followers couldn't move more than 13,000 albums. This wasn't a mixtape drop or an indie rollout. It was a full release, and it flopped so hard that Soulja himself later claimed the label only shipped 8,000 units to stores. Whether true or not, the record stand, 13,000 in week 1 after being at the top, that's a brutal fall. Most civil lawsuits filed against a rapper, Sean Diddy Combs, now holds the record for the most civil lawsuits ever filed against a rapper. Between November 2023 and July 2025, over 80 people filed legal claims against him, mostly involving sexual misconduct, abuse, or related emotional damages. That's not a typo. 80+ individual plaintiffs, tracked publicly by outlets like Vulture, The Washington Post, and The Guardian. It started with Cassie Ventura's lawsuit, On November 16, 2023, her case settled in less than 24 hours, but it triggered a tidal wave. Within weeks, more lawsuits appeared, some anonymous, some named, including allegations from people claiming abuse as recently as 2022. By March 2024, over 20 suits were active. By June of 2025, Vulture ran a guide listing 66 filed cases. That number jumped again when the Washington Post updated the count past 80. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a record-breaking legal avalanche. Lawsuits included allegations of trafficking, drugging, coercion, false imprisonment, and labor abuse. Most of these suits cite events across decades, revived thanks to new laws like New York's Adult Survivors Act, which reopened expired cases. And this isn't like Travis Scott's Astroworld lawsuits, which were mostly filed against promoters and companies. These are suits that personally name Diddy as a defendant, while other rappers like Ye, Lil Wayne, and Snoop Dogg have had scattered civil cases. None have faced anything even close to this. As of mid-2025, no rapper has ever been sued this many times in this short of a span for this kind of alleged conduct. 80+ civil suits, dozens, still active. This is the most documented civil litigation ever aimed at one rapper in music history. Most disliked major rap music video, Drake's God's Plan somehow turned Generosity into the most downvoted rap video ever tracked on YouTube. As of December 2021, the official video had racked up over 500,000 dislikes. That number put it at number 87 on the global most disliked list, and no other major rap video ranked higher. The video itself was a spectacle. Drake gave away nearly $1 million in Florida, filmed it all, and dropped the whole thing as the official visual. Directed by Karina Evans, the video budget was used entirely for donations, about $996,000 worth. It exploded online and crossed 1.2 billion views. But despite the chart dominance and all the headlines praising it, God's Plan still drew the highest known dislike count for a rap video. Eminem's Rap God came close with just under 495,000 dislikes, but it stayed one spot behind Drake on the list. Why the backlash? It's hard to say. Maybe the over-the-top positivity rubbed some people the wrong way. Maybe fans just clicked dislike because the video's reach was unavoidable. Whatever the reason, that counter kept climbing until YouTube made all dislike counts private. 500,000 dislikes on a video where Drake literally hands out money. That's not just ironic, it's historic. He turned philanthropy into a record-breaking YouTube low point for rap video. First artist demoted by Spotify policy. In May 2018, R. Kelly became the first major artist ever pulled from Spotify's editorial and algorithmic playlists. Not because of his lyrics, but because of his off-platform behavior. Spotify launched its new hate content and hateful conduct policy on May 10th. The next day, they removed Kelly's entire catalog from playlists like Discover Weekly. He wasn't banned. His music stayed on the platform. Users could still search for it, stream it, and even add it to their own playlists. But the platform stopped pushing it. That meant no homepage placement, no chart algorithm boosts, no auto insertions into curated lists. It was a hard cut from the digital spotlight, and it marked a first. This wasn't a glitch or quiet removal. Spotify made it public. They named Kelly directly as the first artist affected under the new rule. At the time, the hashtag #MuteRKelly campaign was gaining momentum, and this move turned streaming policy into a national headline. Spotify claimed it wanted to distance itself from artists whose personal conduct didn't align with its values, something no major music platform had tried before at this level. No other artist had ever been deprioritized this way across Spotify's entire global infrastructure. Others would follow, but Kelly set the precedent. He wasn't pulled for violent lyrics or hate speech. He was pulled for off-platform behavior based on public allegations. This made history as the first case of corporate playlist removal and streaming tied to conduct, not content. It wasn't censorship, it was de-promotion, and it turned one artist's controversy into a record-setting shift in how streaming platforms enforce their values. Most court appearances while actively releasing music. NBA, YoungBoy has done something no other rapper has pulled off, showing up in courtrooms while simultaneously staying at the center of the rap game. Between 2019 and 2025, YoungBoy made at least 9 major public court appearances, all while dropping albums, promoting new projects, or prepping tours. That's not just impressive, it's a record. It started in August 2019 with a probation hearing tied to a Miami shooting case. At the time, he was already stacking mixtapes and teasing his first arena tour. A few months later, in December, he had another hearing, just before releasing the #1 album Top. In 2021, he got locked up again in a federal gun case and dropped Sincerely, Kentrell from Behind Bars. It went number 1. In 2023, he appeared in court asking to lift house arrest restrictions, Just As I Rest. My Case and Don't Try This at Home rolled out. In 2024 alone, he had 4 different court events. 1 for prescription fraud in Utah, 2 for bail and plea proceedings, and 1 for sentencing in a federal gun case. And yet that same year, he promoted I Just Got a Lot on My Shoulders and prepped for a tour. By 2025, the pattern hadn't stopped. He got a presidential pardon from Donald Trump just days after announcing his biggest tour yet. That makes him the only rapper on record to appear in court this often while actively releasing music or prepping shows. Other rappers face legal trouble, but no one else is dropping number 1 albums between bond hearings. It's wild, but it's documented, and it's a record. Most IRS debt owed. Lil Wayne's tax bill wasn't just big, it was the heavyweight champ of rapper debt. He racked up over $14 million in unpaid federal income tax, and the government wasn't shy about filing the paperwork to prove it. The debt came from just 2 years. In 2011, he owed more than $7 million. And in 2012, it was nearly $7 million more. The IRS filed the first lien around 2014, stacking both years into one very expensive mess. No other rapper has touched that kind of figure in any official filing. Rick Ross came in way lower, owing around $4 to $5 million spread across a few years. Nelly, just over $2 million. That's lunch money in this arena. Even Ye, who once claimed he was down $50 million, doesn't have a documented lien that touches Wayne's. Public records show no personal tax lien from the IRS on Ye's individual returns during that time. By 2019, Lil Wayne finally cleaned it up. He reportedly got some help from Jay-Z and his music deal money to pay off every cent. The liens were released and the IRS closed the books. But $14 million is a record that's still sitting on top. Not whispered rumors. Actual court-documented filing. No fluff, no exaggeration. Just hard numbers and official forms. The IRS put it in black and white. And so far, no one's gotten close. If you're a rapper trying to break records, maybe skip this one. The defense may forgive, but the IRS never forgets. Longest delay for a major rap album due to label, merger and lawsuit. Clips recorded Hell Hath No Fury in late 2003, right after wrapping up their tour for Lord Willin'. But instead of hitting shelves the next year like most albums, it got buried under a mountain of red tape. Just when they were ready to roll, the label world imploded. Arista got swallowed by Jive during the Sony and BMG merger. That alone would have been messy, but Clips were the only Star Trek act left stuck at Jive. Everyone else moved over to Interscope. While the industry played musical chairs, Clips waited and waited. From 2004 to 2005, they dropped independent mixtapes just to stay active. Their label refused to release the album or let them walk away, so Clips took it to court. In mid-2006, they sued Jive. Finally, in May of that year, a settlement let them release the album through their own imprint under Jive's umbrella. Hell Hath No Fury officially dropped on November 28, 2006, almost 3 years after the first studio session. The delay wasn't because of drama, missed deadlines, or creative slumps. It came down to label chaos and contract lock-ins, and that makes it one of the longest album holdups ever for a major rap release. When it did drop, the album debuted at number 14 on the Billboard 200 and moved around 80,000 units that first week. Critics loved it. The Metacritic score hit 89, and XXL gave it their highest rating. The wait was painful, but the payoff, worth every minute. Still, 3 years stuck in release limbo isn't a record any rapper wants their name on. Most expensive rap album never released. Dr. Dre's Detox was announced in 2002 as the final piece of his catalog, but instead of releasing a masterpiece, it turned into a 14-year game of studio limbo. By the time Dre finally pulled the plug in 2015, over 300 beats had reportedly been made, and industry chatter suggested he had 20 to 40 nearly finished tracks just sitting around. That's not a leak or a rumor. That's directly from Dre, and yet nothing ever shipped. Some songs made it out. Kush with Snoop and Akon, Under Pressure with Jay-Z, and I Need a Doctor with Eminem, but none made it onto an official album. In 2010, Paramount Recording Studios sued Dre's label for more than $1 million in unpaid bills, just for sessions held between 2009 and 2010. That's one of the only publicly documented price tags tied to Detox, and it's just a slice of the cost. By August 1st, 2015, Dre told the world Detox was dead. His words, it just wasn't good. Instead, he dropped Compton. But Detox left a legacy all its own. It became the ghost of the rap world. Millions spent, hundreds of hours logged, zero official release. Industry insiders still float a $10 million price tag. If even half of that's true, it stands as the most expensive rap album that never dropped. Other mega albums like Chinese Democracy and Michael Jackson's Invincible were pricey too, but at least they made it to shelves. Dre's vision was big, the sessions were real, and the spending was massive. But Detox ended up being the unicorn of hip-hop, expensive, mythical, and permanently shelved. First rapper whose music was used as evidence in court. Back in 1992, Mac Dre became the first rapper to have his own lyrics used against him in a federal courtroom. Not some scribbled notebook, not a casual freestyle. Actual lyrics, actual court. The line "shoot out the surveillance cameras" came straight from a police interview and ended up as part of the evidence in a federal conspiracy case tied to bank robberies in Vallejo, California. Mac Dre, real name Andre Louis Hicks, had already been recording professionally by then. He was known in the Bay Area, especially for the anti-police track Punk Police, which prosecutors also referenced during trial. The feds charged him with conspiracy to commit bank robbery, and by mid-1992, he was convicted and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. He served about 4 before being released in 1996. This wasn't some small-time situation. It wasn't state court or backroom speculation. This was federal, and it wasn't some obscure mixtape artist either. Mac Dre was already a name in the industry, which made the decision to enter his lyrics as evidence a big deal. This set the tone for how rap lyrics could be interpreted and misinterpreted in legal settings going forward. Earlier cases existed, like the United States versus Foster in 1991, but that involved a lesser-known writer. Mac Dre's trial was the first time a recognized rapper had their bars treated like a signed confession. That moment kicked off a legal pattern that's still around today. Rap music met the courtroom, and it's never really left. The lyrics became legal ammo, and Mac Dre's case marked the start of it all. A record nobody wanted, but one that changed everything. Longest gap between solo studio albums by a living rapper. Dr. Dre holds this one, and it's not even close. His album 2001 came out on November 16, 1999. His next solo project, not until August 7th, 2015. That's a 15-year, 8-month, and 22-day wait. Basically 16 years of studio silence before Compton finally dropped. And no, that's not a mixtape gap or a feature drought. That's straight up no solo album for over a decade and a half. The crazy part is, Compton wasn't even what he'd been teasing all those years. It was meant to be Detox, but Dre officially shut that down right before dropping Compton, saying it just wasn't good. So this 16-year gap wasn't filled with indecision. He was working, just not releasing. Compared to others, the gap's massive. Mos Def had a long break too, about 10 years between Black on Both Sides and The Ecstatic. Eminem took around 5 years, between Encore and Relapse. Even with those gaps, nobody touched Dre's span. His break stands as the longest solo studio album drought from any living mainstream rapper with verified release records. When Compton hit in 2015, every outlet echoed the same thing. It had been over 15 years since his last album. Wikipedia's release gap chart logged it down to the exact day. No other rapper sits in the 10 to 19 year bracket. Dre's the only one that high. This wasn't about falling off or vanishing. It was a deliberate, nearly 2-decade pause in solo releases. So yeah, Dre's the record holder. 16 years between albums and still nobody's matched it. It's a long break, but it's his and it's in the books. Biggest financial loss ever by a rapper-owned label. Murder Inc. had it all. Massive hits, platinum plaques, and a monster distribution check waiting to clear. From 1999 to 2002, they moved over 30 million units and raked in more than $500 million worldwide. At their peak, Island Def Jam dropped a $65 million advance into the pipeline. The industry was projecting hundreds of millions in future earnings, and the label was riding high on Rule, Ashanti, and a stacked roster. Then came January 3rd, 2003. A federal task force raided their Manhattan offices in connection with a money laundering investigation. That $65 million check frozen. Within days, Def Jam pulled the plug, cutting off all distribution. Just like that, the Murder Inc. machine stalled. Irv Gotti later said the government stepped in and stopped the money from flowing. An estimated $150 million in projected revenue was suddenly off the table. They weren't just bleeding sales, they were bleeding lawsuits. A $132 million judgment hit Def Jam, tied to a Rule side project. Though it was reduced to a sliver on appeal, the reputational mess was already made. On top of that, the Lorenzo brothers spent over $10 million fighting legal charges before finally being acquitted in 2005. Murder Inc. lost distribution, lost its roster, and lost its momentum. Ashanti, Rule and others were shelved or moved on. Touring dried up, projects stalled, and catalog profits vanished. Tally it all, blocked checks, legal costs, lost future income, and the total collapse added up to tens of millions gone. No other rapper run label has ever seen that level of financial fallout hit so fast, so hard, and so completely. Biggest bankruptcy of filing by a rapper. On July 13, 2015, 50 Cent filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, making it the largest known debt filing by any rapper ever. The total liabilities listed? Over $32 million. That number came straight from court schedules, not tabloids or rumors. He filed in the U.S. bankruptcy court for the District of Connecticut, and despite past headlines painting him as a 9-figure mogul, he swore under oath that his net worth was only $4.4 million. The avalanche of debt came from multiple directions. First was a $5 million judgment tied to the Lastonia Leviston case. Then came a $17.2 million ruling related to Sleek Audio, a failed headphones venture. Layer on top of that, more than $20 million in legal costs racked up within just a single year. The math adds up fast and ugly. Monthly filings revealed he was spending around $108,000 a month just to maintain his lifestyle. That included house upkeep, personal staff, vehicles, fitness, and everything in between. While the case was a reorganization, not liquidation, he filed to freeze lawsuits and restructure debt under the court's protection. Compared to others, this was off the charts. MC Hammer's bankruptcy in 1996 listed around $13 million in debt. DMX and Young Buck filed too, but their numbers didn't even come close. Even Mike Tyson's $23 million bankruptcy doesn't count in this category. He's not a rapper. No matter what earlier estimates said about his vitamin water windfall, the court documents laid it bare. 50 Cent had over $32 million in liabilities. No rapper has gone into bankruptcy court with a bigger number than that. Not then, not now. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.